Dr. Craig, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
You've dedicated most of your life to defending the gospel and teaching people about the existence of God. Tell me about your story of faith. How did you come to know Jesus?
Well, I wasn't raised in a church-going family. My parents were nominal members of the United Methodist Church, but this was not a part of our lives on any sort of regular or serious basis. But when I became a teenager, I began to ask what I call the big questions in life. Who am I? Why am I here? What's the meaning of my existence? And in the search for answers, I began to attend church. The only problem was, instead of answers, what I found was a sort of social country club where the dues were $1 a week in the offering plate, and the other high school students who pretended to be such good Christians on Sunday lived for their real God the rest of the week, which was popularity. And this really bothered me because externally, at least, I was leading a better life than they were, and yet deep down inside I knew how spiritually empty I was. And I thought they must be just as empty as I am, but they're putting up a false front, pretending to be something they're not. They're all just a pack of hypocrites. And so I began to grow very resentful toward the institutional church because of the hypocrisy and the phoniness that I saw there. And soon this attitude spread toward people in general. Everybody, I thought, is a hypocrite. Everyone is holding up a plastic mask to the world, while the real person is cowering down inside, afraid to come out and be real. And so I was on my way, frankly, toward becoming a very alienated young man who wanted nothing to do with other people and just threw myself into my studies and my books in order to avoid contact with them.
And so then what happened?
What happened was one day that I was feeling particularly miserable, I walked into my high school German class and I sat down behind a girl who is one of these types that is always so happy.
Oh, yes.
It just makes you sick. And I tapped her on the shoulder and she turned around and I said, Sandy, what are you always so happy about anyway? And she said, it's because I know Jesus Christ is my personal Savior. And I was absolutely floored. I said, well, I go to church. And she said, that's not enough, Bill. You've got to have him living in your heart. And I said, well, what would he want to do a thing like that for? And she said, because he loves you, Bill. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. Here I was so filled with bitterness and anger inside. And she said there was someone who really loved me. And who was it but the God of the universe? And that thought staggered me. I just couldn't take it in, to think that the God of the universe could love me, Bill Craig, that worm down there on that speck of dust called planet Earth. It was just unbelievable. Well, I went home that night and began to read the New Testament. I had been given a copy in the 5th grade by the Gideons when they visited our grade school. I'd never read it. And as I began to read the New Testament, I was absolutely captivated by the person of Jesus of Nazareth. And I realized then that I couldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater, that whatever I might have thought about those who claimed to be his followers in that local church I was attending, I couldn't deny him, because there was an authenticity and truth about his person and words that was just undeniable. So after about 6 months of the most intense soul searching that I've ever been through, I just came to the end of my rope one night and cried out to God. And I cried out all the anger and bitterness that was in me, and surrendered my life to Christ to serve him wholly for the rest of my earthly existence. And that marked the transformation in my life as a teenage boy of 16 years old, and I've never looked back.
Wow. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we return with Dr. Craig, we're going to ask him some of those big questions that many people ask. Stay with us.